presentation. And then you have on Monday, June the 5th at 9:30, you have the budget public hearing. Budget public hearing, that's going to be at 9:30. And then on Monday, June the 19th at 9:30, you have the official budget adoption. Just want to let you know what the process is, okay? Now, at this time, we're going to move to item 4 on the agenda, which is our illustrious county manager, Ms. Denton. She and staff been working real hard on this budget, and you've already heard from some of her staff with this, and we're going to hear from Ms. Denton at this time.
Is this back on? Is this on?
I don't know. Is that back on?
I think it's on. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. As you've heard from our staff, we've been working very diligently since September, by the way, on the budget, starting with capital that we do every year. And if whoever has, can y'all go to my... Can you do, oh, you can't do my whole, just do outside agencies, I'll get to it. We don't have that for the screen, but we'll have the outside agencies piece. This document here is what you had in your weekly update Friday. This is pretty much the meat of the budget. It's a summary. Some of these numbers should sound familiar. You should have heard them either from Mary or Christina earlier. And it does include the one extra staff member for DSS that we're not asking you for money for. So we're pretty happy about that. And we'll get to the outside agencies request in a minute. I'm just going to go through this, and please stop me if you have questions. The document that you got in your weekly update. This is our balanced budget summary. Our balanced budget is $53,314,300. And I won't go through the entire list of everything that's funded, but I'm going to hit the last 3 because those are the most thing that may catch your eye. And we've already discussed capital briefly, your school systems, and then our county departments. The third bullet from the bottom, this balanced budget does include an 8% market adjustment, also known as a cost of living adjustment for our employees. This is the largest increase that I've seen since I've been here, and we were able to do it with our growth. So that is thanks to economic development and the growth that we're able to experience to bring in those dollars that are recurring each year. If 8% sounds familiar, that's generally what the inflation rate is right now. If you've been to the grocery store and if you've bought eggs or Gatorade, for me, they're a lot more expensive than they used to be. And I also understand that 8% is the increase in the Social Security checks that are coming out. So that kind of falls in line with the economy as it is today. This also goes a long way to catch us up, to get us more in line with the counties and municipalities that we compete with in salaries. I don't know if you saw the news report last week from the city of Rocky Mount that their starting salary for a police officer is $60,000. It is the highest in North Carolina. That's higher than Raleigh and Wake County. So this is the world that we live in right now. This balloon just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and I'm kind of waiting for it to burst. And as you know, we're also in the middle of our pay study. I do have the preliminary results, but what they're going to do is take the 8% increases here and marry them with all these other counties and municipalities that are doing the same thing, because the numbers that they have were fall 2022 numbers. And so I'll get updated numbers, and they're scheduled to present to you all in June.
Right.
June, staff? Yes. So that won't affect this coming year's budget. That'll be something we can discuss later in the year and possibly into your retreat as we plan for 24-25. Another thing. Yes, ma'am.
And my question is this: with the 8% increase, and we look at evaluations, how does that impact evaluation in terms of if an individual does really, really well, and they get compensated for their performance, how does that impact that individual?
So it doesn't impact your salary. The last several years, the way we have funded performance pay is by a bonus. So when an employee gets their evaluation, you're on a scale of 1 to 5. If you get at least a 3, which is meeting expectations, it's a bonus of $500. And then if you get a 4, it's $750. And then a 5, which is the highest at outstanding, is $1,000. And that is what we have funded in this budget. It's been several years since we've done a percentage attached to the salary for evaluations. We're still funding it based on like a bonus piece.
Okay, so we stop attaching it to the evaluation piece.
We stopped attaching a salary increase to the evaluation. It's just a bonus now.
And that applies to all employees.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that is funded. The evaluation, it's the next to your last line in that top section, pay for performance, bonus pay, based on your annual evaluation, it is funded. And we have to average it out from the previous year to estimate kind of how those numbers fall out in each department, but it is funded.
Because that's my concern, how it's going to fall out. As you look at your 8%.
That won't affect that 8%.
Okay. Look at your performance.
Right.
See, the 8% is across the board.
Yes.
And then whether it's 500 or 1,000 is tied into performance, depending on whether you get a 3, 4, 5, or whatever. That's when you get that, and that's not a recurring expense.
Correct. That's a one-time
One-time bonus based on.
appropriation to that employee.
Right.
So when we look at the new pay scale, and that doesn't take effect until 2024?
Depending on how you all choose to implement it. Yes, ma'am. This is to kind of get us closer with the 8% while we work through the specifics of the pay study, because what they've recommended doing is moving positions up by grades. That's how our salary scale is grades. And so the cleanest way to do it is to move positions up by grades. And not every position will move the same number of grades. And we'll have to address internally folks that are in the same position or the same classification. We'll have to address some of those compression issues. So that's what we'll probably work on throughout the fall.
And I think that was our concern when we looked at the pay scale.
Yes. And from what we've seen, it's the typical positions that you would expect that we would have to implement first. So my thinking is if you were to do it on a phased implementation rate, to address those positions first that are so far off what the market is, that's what we're looking at.
Great question, Ms. Johnson. Really is.
The last bullet under that top piece is we did have enough growth to absorb. Health insurance did go up approximately 17%. So we're estimating that. We discussed health insurance earlier. And retirement went up just slightly under 1%. We thought last year they were done. They were not. And so it's gone up just another percentage point to keep up with the market. And that comes down from the state, from the retirement system.
And as far as health calls, the county,
I'm sorry?
as far as the health coverage, the county pays for that
Yes.
for employees?
Yes, we provide 100% premium coverage to employees.
I see Mr. Holm back there from her. I just want him to be able to say things like that.
Yes. Yes. The next section you've already mentioned, I'll just go over it briefly. This is the Article 44 funding that Christina mentioned earlier. If you add in the amount for the community college, all four entities to receive $195,000. That's a total of $780,000, and that is included in the balanced budget. And you all made that motion earlier to keep that funding going towards education, so we'll check that one off of our list.
Right.
The next section is under fund balance. I hope these numbers look familiar. Mary went over these earlier. The unassigned fund balance, and that's what I like to call cash. This is the cash you have to spend on whatever you would like to spend it on. Do what? Legally, what you can spend it on. Yes, thank you. That's just over $22 million. As we get further into these discussions, my recommendation to you is to not take that number below $14,400,000, because that will still keep you above the 22% mark that you have indicated that you would like to keep cash available for emergencies or any kind of catastrophic event that may occur in society that we can be ready to handle on our own for some period of time.
Yeah, that's what Ms. Johnson was talking about earlier.
Yes.
Yep.
Now, this number does include your ARPA-enabled funds, and we have to be careful about ARPA-enabled, don't we, Mr. Rollins? Okay. What it doesn't include is the $2 million set aside for broadband. Okay, so you've got another $2 million sitting over here in your special revenue fund just to address broadband. Now, as we get through broadband, which may be years at this point, who knows, what you don't use for broadband, you can bring back into your fund balance. Okay, so we'll kind of see how things shake out, but that's sitting there to address that issue. That's a top priority for you. But what you don't, you can bring back and put it in your general fund balance. And just the actual, this is the LGC fund balance, this is what is in your audit, is actually 64.79%, or $51,331,513. And just as a review, our tax rate is 76 cents, and as Mary mentioned earlier, 1 cent in property tax brings in approximately $355,000 in revenues. The next page I'll hit very briefly. You've already discussed this during your retreat. It's about the same as what you saw before. The capital, this is, again, included in your balanced budget, $3,856,950. Addresses, this is kind of an HVAC year to replace and upgrade some of our systems in our county buildings, among some other things. Page 3.
Before you get to that,
Yes, ma'am.
as we look at the $200,000 for the body scanner, that's if, Congressman Davis doesn't come through with the $200,000.
So thank you for mentioning that. I actually talked to Kim Mack today.
Okay.
I received a pretty generic email last Monday, and all it said was your project, not projects, was not funded. And apparently they received numerous projects, and they could only pick 15 to move forward to be considered under appropriations. So I replied to the email to, and this is to the DC staff. This was not to Kim. This came down from the DC staff. And I said, can you clarify for me, does that mean projects, as in all three, or project? And I haven't gotten a response. So I reached out to Kim to see if she could maybe clarify for me, and her response was just kind of hang out for a little bit. I don't know what that means. So I don't know if that email was directed towards one project, and I don't know which one it is. But she told me just to sit tight for a little bit, and I said, well, I'm presenting some budget information tonight, and so I'm going to have this in here in case it isn't funded, being kind of the lowest cost and kind of a high priority need, especially for the jail. Now, we do have some indication that the Airport Authority's project could be funded through Senator Tillis's office, but we're waiting to hear. So everything's still up in the air with those projects. So that actually addresses number 6 on page 3. The other 5 items I'll just go over briefly. Number 1, just to be clear, in the past, especially for our 2 new commissioners, and I'm trying to be in teaching mode tonight, so please stop me if I'm not clear about something. The past several years, the commissioners have voted to give an across-the-board bonus to all county staff. That is not included in my balanced budget to you at this moment. If you are to include it, that cost is $583,000. That is a separate amount again, and typically we would disperse that in July, right after the budget is adopted. The bonus pay that we mentioned earlier, that's part of your evaluation, that comes when you're evaluated. So every employee has a different evaluation month, so it just kind of falls whenever your evaluation date is. That's a one-time amount, and we also do typically do $500 for our part-time employees as well. I'll skip over number 2.
This is not related to the evaluation.
Correct.
This is another.
Yes, ma'am. That is a totally separate amount. Yes, ma'am. We'll talk about this on the screen in just a minute, if I can go through the other items very quickly. My point leaving it there is that that's just an unknown expense that you all can discuss when the time comes and decide how to fund certain agencies. For those of you that were with us last year, the 2 new ones, this will be new for you. Halifax Community College was randomly selected to undergo an ADA compliance audit by the Office of Civil Rights with the community college system. They identified several pages of things that need to be corrected or renovated to bring the buildings into compliance. Last year, it was a very small amount. It was $50-some thousand last year. And if you remember, is Dr. Elliott still here? There you are, okay. Dr. Elliott was not with us yet. We had Dr. Forrester as the interim president. So we sat down with him, we got a copy of his report, and we knew that this year the amount would be much larger. And so when Dr. Elliott came on board, I sat down with her to kind of talk through these things to make sure, she could wrap her head around it and that everybody was on the same page. And so we've had extensive conversations, haven't we, about the needs for the college. And there's a report that they had submitted to the state office. I have a copy of that and the things that would need to be done to bring the school into compliance. I do have it with me, it's over here, but we knew the total this year would be well into the 6 figures. And so it's $678,200. And thank you to Dr. Elliott for being so responsive when I ask all these million questions that I have for you. And then we do estimate for the next budget year about $600,000. And hopefully that'll get us pretty close to where we need to be to bring the school into compliance. Again, not funded. Number 4 on your list is just a separate capital outlay request by the college, and it's lighting throughout the campus. I understand if it's dark out and you go out, it's pretty dark out there in some different spots. So the request is $250,000 just to address campus lighting throughout the campus. Number 5 we'll also talk about separately, if you'll just indulge me, your capital reserve fund. This will be funding if you choose to put in from your ARPA-enabled funding for those projects to go in your capital reserve fund, which I believe is going to be on your next page. Questions about that before I move to page 4?
All these items are not.
That's correct. I'm sorry?
You would need to find funding for.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Page 4, I hope will look familiar to you. This is the list that we discussed during your retreat back in December of the ARPA-enabled projects that staff have recommended you consider. I did take the liberty of striking through the amphitheater based on my discussions with you all. If that's something that you're interested in, kind of just kind of killing, we can take that off the list, and then we'll have discussions about whether the county would like to continue the lease with the state of North Carolina. I did take that off. And I did not include, where's mine? Oh, the body scanner is highlighted in yellow. That being a capital, like a piece of equipment, that cannot go into the capital reserve fund, so that would have to be funded separately. So the other 1, 2, 3, 4 projects, those total $5.9 million. if you would like to consider putting that amount of funding into your capital reserve fund. And there's your bus garage, Commissioner Webb. Yes, sir. Questions about that?
No, I do think we're in favor of the 5.9
Okay.
in the capital fund. I mean, I think we've kind of gone down this road the last few years as far as putting something in the capital reserve fund. Don't need to stop now.
They're good projects, especially the water and sewer.
Yeah.
That's a once in a generation.
With our bus garage, we've been in partnership with other counties.
We'd be in part, so yes, so Halifax County Schools actually handles the maintenance of all 3 school systems buses right here outside of town. So yes, it would be in partnership with Halifax County Schools and hopefully for county vehicles as well, just to do kind of like minor maintenance, oil changes, that kind of thing. So yes, it would be all 3 school systems and the county together.
Well, eventually that will be saving the county money. If this-
We think so. We think so.
And they're probably saving the school system's money too.
Yeah, if you can pull all those resources, it makes sense that it would.
Yeah.
Yeah. And right now, I don't know if you've heard them say that with the new buses, they can't pull them all the way in to those garages, like the back ends are kind of sticking
Right.
out, which is not great when it's bad weather. So,
Isn't Halifax County supposed to get the new buses? The electrical?
they are. I don't know how to work on those. I hope they do.
Garage, because you don't have to have
Yeah, yeah.
different.
Other questions about these projects? Okay. Okay, here's the fun part. It's the fun part every year. Can we, is it possible to make that bigger? I'm just gonna have to walk over to it.
Testing it. How's that?
Oh, that's great, okay.
Outstanding.
Oh, thank you, okay. Okay, these are your outside agency requests, and what's not on this spreadsheet, but is on your copies that you have and you got in your weekly update, just to kind of clean up things a little bit, there are 6 that are not on this list anymore because we consider them to be either internal or something that you're just going to go ahead and fund anyway. And so we're trying to take away any kind of extra conversation that you wouldn't even have to have, and they're funded. So where's my friend Jim Short? There you are. Included in that list, just for the audience's benefit, is Beaver Management, East Carolina Livestock Arena, Eastern Carolina 4-H Livestock Show and Sale, Harvest Days. All 4 of those are going to fall under cooperative extension for obvious reasons. Number 5 is the Forest Service, and you are funded at your full request. Welcome. And the do what?
I said, no, really, thank you.
And the last one is Quiz Bowl / Battle of the Books. There's a little bit of transition about what the library is doing based on the interest of the school system, so it may transition just to Battle of the Books. Those are all funded internally, so they're not listed up here. Okay? Now, the rest of these is where you all get to talk to each other and tell me what you want to do. There are 2, Christina, can you scroll down just a little bit? You'll see that there are 2 that are funded. Let's see if I can figure this out. Oh. First one, HNRAA, that's the Halifax Northampton Regional Airport Authority. That is funded. The other one is your Recreation Partners Program. That is also funded. So the Airport Authority is funded at $40,000 and the Rec Partners Program is funded at $30,000. Those are included in the balanced budget. The rest of these, starting with CADA at the top, CPTA, Family Supporting Families, down to Hannah's Place, Hollister Community Center, Lake Gaston Weed Control Council, going down to Roanoke River Basin, Roanoke River Partners, Roanoke Valley Adult Daycare Center, which we have not gotten a request, but they were funded last year, so it's on there this year. Roanoke Valley Rescue Squad, I understand they were going to send a request. I have not received a request.
Didn't they receive an increase? Oh,
From the city of Roanoke Rapids,
oh. from
they have a
City of
1
Rapids.
cent,
Oh, okay,
yes, so they received quite a bit of funding, and they primarily serve that area.
okay.
And finally, Union Mission. Now, in order just to spur some conversations, under manager recommendation, I put those numbers up, but please understand they're not funded, and this is solely for discussion. And what we can do is, as you discuss it, Christina can enter it in, and you can see at real time what your totals are, that I can plug into my cafeteria plan coming up here shortly.
So last year, we did give Cato 15,000.
Yes.
See, I was told it was a lot less than that.
I think it was 10.
We,
We initially did 10, and then the commissioners added 5 more.
Okay,
in the final budget, it was 15.
all right.
And then you showed me that other time.
Mr. Smith
That's
is on the
on
county
them.
board, that's why he's talking like that.
And I understand they're getting quite a bit of funding from some other sources as well, to include money to help with the home consortium. So again, those are just numbers I put up just to spur your discussion. If you would like to cut it, change it, it does not hurt my feelings. These are just to spur discussion so that we can add in whatever you would like to do in that column right there that says
I'm just gonna
BOC
speak
additions.
personally, I'm okay with Cato 20,000. Do we get our bang for our buck with CPTA? I'm just asking, because I really don't know.
They're active. I would have to defer to people that serve on that board. I think Chris Roundtree still serves on it. Is that correct? Okay.
Stephanie does.
Stephanie Harmon? Okay, our RPO coordinator does. I would have to defer to them. I don't think I could give you a good answer.
Okay.
Are there questions? Do you have discussion? You see a whole laundry list there. I'll defer to Glenn on the statutes that are cited.
Well, just briefly, the last two columns, the next to last column says county authority with a question mark, and I've given with each item where we have a request, as you know, for us to make a grant to someone, we've actually got to be able to do whatever it is they're doing. If we're not authorized to do the work they propose to do, we can't make the grant. So, for example, with Cato, the first item there are 3 separate statutes listed there. 160D 1316 has to do with housing programs for low to moderate income. 153A 255 is the authority to fund or do social services programs aside from those that are at DSS. You have to do what DSS is required to do, but you may do additional social services programs. That's under that statute. 160D 1311 is also a community development type program for low to moderate income, authority to do that. So we have plenty of statutory authority for that. And our funding with the tax levy is also authorized under those statutes that are cited there. I've gone through each of these requests and noted whether we have authority to do what they would be doing with our public dollars and how we can fund them. The one I don't have comments on is Hollister Community Center. I just wasn't clear on what it was they were asking for money for. It seemed to me it was to help build or renovate a community center, and typically we're not allowed to engage in capital projects for an outside entity. Sometimes we can fund operations if it's something we can do, but capital projects, no. And then with respect, you'll see a question mark I have with Lake Gaston Weed Control Council. On our authority there, I said perhaps watershed improvement under Chapter 139, Article 3. We'll have to inquire more about that, but there's very limited authority for us to do the kinds of things that Lake Gaston Weed Control Council is doing. We can discuss that with them later. And beyond that, Roanoke River Basin, I've still never figured out what it is they do. And we haven't funded them in a while. I don't think they've asked for funding this year, so not much need to get into that. But otherwise, I've found authority to do most of what everything else up there is requesting money from us. I would say to you that anyone we do fund needs to sign a grant agreement with us, specifying what their obligations are and their reporting obligations back to us about what they did with those public dollars. And that's going to be the case with any grant recipient who might be funded with your decisions tonight. Any questions?
I only have one question. I think this is one I'm looking at Hannah's place,
Yes, ma'am.
and what were they requesting it for?
They requested 5,000. Do we remember what their letter said, y'all?
It was straight generic.
Was it generic?
Program.
Okay.
Just generally, I said one-page letter, Ms. Johnson, just to support their programming with domestic violence and things such as that, which would fall under our general social services public welfare authority. No specific program they had in mind to fund with it.
Okay. I guess I'll go with the elephant in the room. Weed council.
You missed that.
Oh, I missed it. Oh,
I'm
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
I didn't realize you'd stepped out.
yes, sir, I'm sorry. What,
I was telling.
just for me, Mr. Robin, please.
I've gone through to try to find what authority we might have to engage in the same kind of activity that the
Right.
Weed Council does. And the only possible authority we have to do that kind of work would be as a watershed improvement project, if that's what it is.
Okay.
A watershed improvement project for a county involves having your project approved by the State Soil and Water Commission under a particular set of statutes that have to do with authority of counties to engage in watershed improvement. So if you're going to fund the Weed Control Council, it'll have to be on the condition that it constitutes a watershed improvement project and that gets approval from the state commission on, you know. And if not, then the funding would have to be returned. It would not be a lawful grant.
So when you say the state, you're not talking about the local soil and water?
No, sir, I'm not talking about our district soil and water. I'm talking about the state
Okay.
Soil and Water Conservation Commission. Specifically in that statute says that our projects as a county have to have their prior review and approval.
So what will be the process to contact members of the weed council, I guess, weed council, to let them know?
I don't have any idea because we've never done a watershed improvement project as a county before. If that says anything, that may say more than anything else I could say about it. We've never done a project.
I guess to kind of answer what she's asking a little bit, I guess, Commissioner Davis, if we decided to approve or, or whatever, give them something, I guess it would be subject to them getting that approval or that information and, and of course, if they fail to do it, then the money would revert back to the county.
The grant would be like everyone else's grant.
Right.
And it has to comply with our authority as a county to do this work, and they have to comply with the same thing. So whatever proposal they might have about using our money for their activity on the lake, their plans, their work plan would have to be approved by the State Soil and Water Conservation Commission. They do have a contact. I can help them with that, but the county itself has never done this kind of work. But this is where this falls, and that's what will have to happen.
Did you all talk about an amount while I was out, or you didn't do that for the?
No, we did.
Okay, all right, okay.
But were we considering at some point of communicating with them through a letter and asking them, letting them know that if you're going to be funded, then these are the conditions or the justifications for that funding.
Yes, ma'am, that would be an appropriate thing for us to do.
That target's gonna be right here.
The whole world has the emails, and the unlisted numbers.
I'm happy to send it.
I'll wrap up by just saying, I hope this is helpful to you with the outside funding request. We should always go through this process of, it is absolutely required that we be funding things that we ourselves could do if we wanted to. We're simply contracting with another outside entity to do it instead. And if we can't do it, we can't fund it.
And I guess my question would be the community center. That's not our property.
It's not our property and would be capital, improvements to
Capital
another
dollars,
entity's
correct.
property. It's maybe a much easier case for that kind of project if they already have the facility and they want a program that somehow they want to help with funding. That's a lot easier to find the authority to do that. Making capital improvements on someone else's property is not what we can do.
You got to make a decision now.
Y'all get to make that next week.
That's up to y'all.
Yeah. Well, if we, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So will you be making a decision individually on each one of these projects, or?
Generally, what happens is when we get to this portion, this is always what is discussed the most. So among the six of you, y'all generally come to some kind of consensus about what you would like to fund, and then we'll add the figures into the budget. If you decide tonight.
Right.
If you have your consensus tonight.
So, do we need to just, are we going to, are we going to address the weed council at all? Do we need to skip over it now?
You come back next month?
We can. It's up, yeah, we can. It's up to you all.
Go back to one thing, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
The college, it's not funded, the capital. So we're looking at 1.something million the following year. Because we're not going to do the 6 that's coming up budget, and there's already another 6 out there. Am I reading that correctly?
If you can choose to fund what I have in here for 23-24, the $678,200. Yes, I do actually have that in your cafeteria plan and in my recommendation. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet, because, that's okay. Because if you decide your outside agencies, we'll have that total, and we can add that in. Again, this is going to be smaller compared to everything else you're doing. It's the most discussion for the smallest amount of money.
Yeah.
So that's why we're just not there yet.
Well, let's move on down beyond the weed council and talk about some of the others. We have already? Okay, I missed it all, didn't I? Was I going that long? Okay.
So did y'all have any thoughts about what's recommended? Did you want to change anything so we know how to proceed?
You back at Decatur or for the whole?
Under manager recommendation, just to see
Okay.
if you all would like to consider funding, I put those numbers in just to spur your discussion.
Okay.
That total comes to $43,500.
And you give Decatur, according to your recommendation, $5,000 more than we
Right.
did last year.
Yes, ma'am.
And even though I questioned CPTA, it looked like they got 20,000 last time. So,
Well, I think from a meeting I was in recently, that the CPTA has increased their cost of transporting people.
I have heard I've heard that, but I haven't seen it definitively.
To college to come and $14 to take them home. So what are we doing? I guess that's my question. They ought to have income if they're charging that amount of money to transport somebody to and from school. said, do you know?
But the transportation doesn't have a large capacity.
I know.
It's a small capacity.
Yeah.
Vehicle that we use, so it's large.
Just was trying to understand the increase in the prices to the individual.
For gas prices and just going up.
Everything's going up.
So have we decided everything on the sheet, even below the weed council and all? Hmm?
I think with the recommendations that the county manager has made,
Right.
and that we are going to discuss the weed council or some other point, decide what we're going to do.
Right.
I think it's pretty good.
Okay. All right.
Which is kind of place, but you said they didn't give detail about the specific needs for the fund.
They didn't. Most of them don't give a ton of detail.
That's a pretty large chunk. Place, I'd like to know what they do, because I know they're supported, personally I know, by several churches.
Yeah.
Supported to the point of appliances, furnishings.
Okay.
Those kinds of things.
Outside agencies that support them also.
Okay.
Domestic dollars.
Right.
And you don't have to do
So we had said that a letter would be sent to the Lake Gaston Weed Council by the county manager. And that
Yes.
letter will, what is that letter gonna say? I mean, I know you don't ever.
It basically will, correct me if I'm wrong, it'll place the burden on them to prove that this is a watershed protection measure, that they would have to request approval? Who requests approval from the state, soil and water?
They will have to get approval.
They
for their
need to
plan
do it. Okay.
From the Soil and Water Conservation
Okay.
Commission. I will draft a letter to them. It may come under the county manager's name. That's fine.
Right.
I'll take any pride in authorship of most of what I do. But essentially, they need to understand what our limitations are and what we're up against in trying to fund what they do.
Right.
And I can lay that out.
Yeah.
In enough detail, they'll know what the problem is.
Okay. Now, my next question is it okay or not okay for us to put an amount in it?
I don't want an amount there until I see if it can be done.
Well,
Or just see if they're gonna pursue it. Let me change that statement.
Thank you. Because part of the problem will be, you don't know, they won't have anything to submit to the
Right.
Soil and Water Conservation Commission until they develop a plan. But they need to understand what our limitations are and how we're gonna resolve that in their favor if
All right.
we can, if we can.
Well, look like we're gonna come back for another meeting too then. Because we haven't made a decision about that.
Well,
That-
I think Dia said you had one till June.
Yeah, I don't know that we we wouldn't know by next week. I mean, the best we would do is to get the letter out this week. And you don't have to decide this as part of your budget.
Okay.
You can make an appropriation in the budget year if you would like to do that.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right, so have we finished with the outside agency request summary?
I did hear a question about Hannah's Place. Did y'all want to pull that?
What was your recommendation, by Hannah's Place?
I put 1,000 up there.
Yeah, just leave it there, that'd be fine. I would recommend leaving it there,
Okay.
yeah,
So our total is 43.5.
yeah,
Everybody good with that?
yeah.
Okay.
And you got direction on everything else, right?
Oh, yes, we know what to do with the weed. Mhm.
All right, okay, all right. Moving right along,
Moving right along. Here's the fun part.
all right, fun part.
Okay, so 43.5. So page 6 of your document should say cafeteria plan at the top. This is a little bit different than what you've seen in past years. Part of it due to our circumstances are different with funding that we have and things that you all would like to consider funding. So what I have here, these are all the things that are referenced earlier in the document, but now have the outside request number attached to it at 43.5. So whatever that total at the bottom is 7.6 million, that'll be plus 43.5. Okay, so can somebody do the quick math for me? I could probably do it standing here. Let's see. 7,654,700. Is that right? Okay. Okay, so to include everything, those 6 items under your cafeteria plan, the idea is to give you, number one, the amount attached to each of those projects or items, and then the total at the bottom. So if you put in the 43.5 for outside request, your total comes to $7,654,700. If you take that back from the top on your unassigned fund balance, that's your cash available. We'll do that math, and at the bottom it says 14,483. We'd have to subtract an additional 43.5.
It's 14,439,526.
14,439,526. Thank you. Okay. Quick math, people. Quick math.
I like money.
And that also will say that if Congressman Davis funds the 200,000, then we will go ahead.
That's correct.
I just want to bring that back to the table.
Don't worry, we're not going to forget it. Don't worry. Now, that's to say, if you were to fund all 6 of these items, and your total comes to, Commissioner Davis, $14,439,526. That still keeps you above your 22% mark, which is 14,386,265. Okay.
That's on page 6.
Yes, ma'am, that's page 6.
Page 7.
In case you were to ask me,
Hey, you were ready?
in case you were to ask me,
Your recommendation, huh?
yes, and I'll tell you what I don't have here are, these are also listed in kind of a priority order, just a little bit. I don't feel terribly strongly, but you do have to decide at some point what to do with your ARPA funds that you freed up. So there's that. If you were to ask me, I would say fund those 5 things at the top. It does not include, I'm very sorry, Dr. Elliott. It doesn't include the lighting, only because they're getting a little bit of an increase in their Article 44-524 funds, and we're hoping they can leverage funds from other sources as well. So I'll just put that out there. And that total, again, you would have to add the 43.5, would be 7,361,200 plus the 43.5.
In the past, we've been given the community college part of the Article 44, but it's been less, right?
Correct. This year is the first year that we have divided it evenly
Equal,
across
right.
the 4, the
Okay.
3 school systems and the community college. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Last year, I can tell you, they got 150,000. So $45,000 increase.
Okay.
The regular funding that we do in the budget is funded, just so y'all know. You know, we have the lines for their regular current expense and capital. That is also funded. So I will leave that there. If you have questions, I'll be glad to try to answer it, but this is really for your discussion and what you would like for me to do.
So what was the amount in the outside request again?
$43,500.
Okay. So I guess, Commissioners, what she's saying is, under, what she's recommending under the manager's recommendation are the 5 listed items there. And, you know, are we okay with that? Yes, that will give her good direction, and we are. She's been working this thing along with her staff and Miss Duncan and the whole crew over
Look at
there.
them smiling. They're smiling now. That total, if you add the 43.5, if my math is right, is 7,404,700. That's quick math.
I'm sure Commissioner Davis got it.
No
on
calculator.
paper somewhere. She's pretty good with math. Teacher by profession.
We're looking at the first one is Plan A on page 6 and Plan B on page 7.
And ideally, you can pick from the cafeteria plan and fund whatever you want to fund. And what it is it's easy for us just to add those things together. If you want to pick out, instead of all 6, 3, 4, 5, it's totally up to you. I thought that might simplify it just a little bit, so you could just maybe flip back and forth between 2 pages as opposed to close to a dozen.
Let me ask this question. Can the lighting be done in stages? Is this, as we look at the $250,000, that's for lighting across the campus. But can that lighting be done in stages which will decrease?
I asked Dr. Elliott that very question. Dr. Elliott, I'm going to pull your email unless you can tell me.
Happy to respond.
Go.
Come on up.
Go right ahead.
This is, just give us your name and your occupation. We all know y'all, just for the public, really. And we also got the director of DSS out there, too. Ms.
Good
Felicia
evening,
Anderson.
Chairman, Commissioners. Patrina Elliott, President, Halifax Community College. The issue with the lighting is that we're being told that it's underground. It's an underground matter. And so it's not static, it's sporadic, and it is across different parts of the campus. Sometimes certain sections will be operable, and then other times that same section will not. And so it is dispersed all around the campus. So more than likely, when we have a contractor to come and address it, they're going to probably tell us that we have to address the whole thing, and from a cost factor, it's probably going to be best to do so. But it would be very difficult to identify which lights at which times, unfortunately. So how I became aware of it is that upon my entrance into the college, my first evening program was the BLET graduation. And I went in and I apologized and said, I apologize, I think that we forgot to activate the lights in time for the program. And that's when I found out that the lights didn't work and had to use my camera phone to get back to my car. Unfortunately, that wasn't the event that you wanted to be at to find out this situation. But we are looking at other resources. We are seeking external resources as well. But of all the comprehensive immediate needs, we shared with Ms. Denton that the ADA and the lighting, we understand that the appropriation, no matter how significant the needs are, we're realistic that the appropriations can't cover everything at once. And those were the items that we identified as additional capital needs for this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Me, go back here.
So, Ms. Denton, did you have anything additional you want to add?
No, I'm open to questions.
Okay.
Or your
Questions?
discussion.
Questions of the manager, we can discuss it. You know, getting back to Ms. Johnson's suggestion, you know, I even thought about maybe, you know, Northampton County, you know, they're part of the Halifax Community College, just like Halifax, and maybe sharing the costs between Halifax and Northampton and maybe even the community college, but yes, ma'am.
I'm just going to sit.
I totally agree, Chairman Bryant. And in preparation for that, in the request this year, we did due diligence to expand the information that we provided to Northampton to hopefully increase the appropriations that we're receiving. Historically, we have not been receiving, according to my research, capital outlay funding support. I can't really speak to why that is the matter,
Right.
but we have asked.
Okay.
I have put forth that ask.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, commissioners? Questions, comments? Y'all doing a good job by working on not being here next week. You're doing good so far. Doing good so far.
I think we were allowed to ask questions as the presentations were being made.
Yes, ma'am.
So what we need to determine whether we're going to do with page 6 or page 7.
Well, and really, it doesn't have to be either or. So, page 6 is designed for you to pick from. But I took the liberty, because I figured someone would ask, what do you recommend? That is page 7.
Right.
Now, you can still go back to page 6 and do whatever it is you like, and we can rework those figures accordingly.
And we also can come back at some point in time and help the community college in regards to their lighting, based on what Northampton will do and where other funding may come from.
You know, if that body scanner gets funded, that would free up a whole lot of money.
There's that call to Representative Davis.
Just saying.
Good. Pretty good on your feet, Ms. Denton. Very good.
You know I eat, sleep, and breathe this. So, this is my Super Bowl.
Yes, sir.
I feel that, you know, I know that our county manager and staff will do due diligence into this. I would feel comfortable in accepting her recommendations.
And I would too.
I second that, Mr. Smith.
Let me ask you all this, and I don't have any problem in turning that as a motion if y'all, is that proper? And I'm asking the attorney and the county manager.
I don't have to have a
I don't think it
motion.
requires a formal motion.
Okay.
This is really about your direction to the county manager about the budget.
Okay. So going back to that, Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Brewer, Vice Chair Brewer, we can, by consensus, we can just give her that head nod and move forward. How about that? Okay, all right. Ms. Denton, you got the direction you need. You got
I'm sorry,
the
what's your
direction- You got the direction you need.
Yes, sir. If you'll indulge me for a minute, we can go to page 8.
Okay.
This is, and I'll tell you what I was speaking with Mr. Rollins about. This is a comprehensive list of directions, just so we're all clear. Number 1, you've decided already
Right.
to go to education, that article 44-524.
We voted on that.
You did. You did vote. Number 2, that is still pending. It doesn't affect what we're doing right now. You'll have to wait, and we'll have to wait till we hear back from the town of Scotland Neck specifically, but we will need a motion on both of those items when it comes time to vote on your budget.
Right.
So both the tax rate increases for Ray'sville Fire Tax District and Scotland Neck. So that is still pending. The position requests that Renee went over, we don't need money, so that's the good part. We actually got requests for 9 positions, and I'm only recommending 4. Outside of agencies, that's going to be 43.5, okay? Now, this is what I was mentioning to Mr. Rollins, the Capital Reserve Fund. If you give us your consensus tonight, we can move forward, but what we'll have to do is come back with a resolution.
Right, I'll prepare a
Okay.
resolution for you to make that appropriation to the Capital Reserve Fund, actually effective with the budget.
With the
which would be
budget.
July.
It'd be
So we
effective
might-
July 1.
Right, we may do that ahead of time, before July 1, but there'll be a separate action apart from your budget ordinance adoption to move that money actually into capital reserve for those 5 projects.
Are we all clear on what they're talking about? Okay, all right.
And then number 6 was the cafeteria plan options, and I think I heard that you're good with what I threw out there for you to
Right,
consider on
yeah.
page.
Yeah, Commissioner Smith's
7.
baritone voice made that real.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Okay. Commissioner Webb, don't look like we'll be here next Monday. Okay, anything else, Ms. Denton?
Not for me.
Okay. But we do have another matter on the agenda, on the other business. Attorney Rollins, did you have anything else to
I
report?
have something.
No, sir, not tonight, not for this.
Okay.
I'm like Kathy, I'd never do that.
Ms. Denton?
I'm sorry, I was
It's okay.
talking to Kathy. We did wanted to run something by you all really quickly since we won't be here next Monday. We have tentatively scheduled your economic development tour for next Friday, April, is that the 28th? April 28th, starting at about 9 here and finishing up at about 3,
Just before
3-ish,
3,
just
yeah.
before 3. Just want to make sure you all are still good with that. We'll send out the itinerary in your update Friday.
Okay. And to meet here?
Yes, sir.
Right.
And we're going to get on the big bus, right? Can we use y'all's bus? Can we borrow your bus? Okay, thanks.
Is everybody able to go?
Oh,
Well, I don't know. Well,
Okay, good.
is everybody in, out? We just wanted to check to be sure.
Yeah.
Out?
Good possibility I'll be out, so real friends are going to call me the way.
You're iffy. Okay. In?
and I'll be there. Yep.
Okay. So 3, maybe 4.
And we'll invite Economic Development Board members too,
Right.
so.
Okay.
I promise that's it for me now.
Yep. All right. Okay, thank you, Ms. Scott, for setting that up. And, you know, in the beginning, if some of you may remember, Ms. Denton was talking about this 8% and across the board, but she mentioned economic development is one of the reasons why we're in a position to do this. And Ms. Scott, raise your hand again so people know that. Well,
Raise your hand for
she's it. Okay. We do have one other item, resolution in honor of Roger Whitaker, Halifax County Centenarian. And I believe that Commissioner Smith, I believe you're the person responsible for bringing this to our attention. You had a gentleman down your way, I believe, who turned 102. Wow. And to the public, if you know of citizens in the county, you know, 100 plus, let us know, please, or have their family members to contact us so we can recognize them in some way. You know, you live that long, you need to be recognized. No question. But anyway, we appreciate Commissioner Smith doing that, and I think the commissioners have that information before them. We're not going to read it, we're just going to ask for your approval. Okay, motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Johnson. Any further discussion? All those in favor by the sign aye. All opposed? You're going to present this in some way, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, very good. All right. Okay, anything else, commissioners? Anything else, Ms. Denton?
No, sir.
Turn around, I know you don't have anything else.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, okay, if not, I'm going to show you a trick. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Hey, she's been quiet all night. Motion by Vice Chair Brewer, second by Commissioner Johnson. Any further discussion? All those in favor by the sign aye. All opposed? When is our next meeting, Madam Clerk?
May 1st.
Meeting adjourned.